I'm Harrison.
And I'm Ameer, and we believe that one of life's most valuable assets is the gift of conversation.
In the midst of life, sometimes we forget the true power of a deep, meaningful conversation.
So take a breath, come join us,
and let's talk about life. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Let's Talk About Life podcast. My name is Harrison King, and joining me again today is the wonderful, amazing, fabulous Ameer Corro. Ameer, say hi.
What's up, y'all? What's up? Happy to be here again.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun last week, so we're gonna have a little conversation again. I think we want to talk a little bit about what it means to not what it means, living your age, like acting your age, right? That's kind of what we're gonna go into. I think is the plan, and
yeah, today hopefully a conversation about age, about growing up, about maturity, and just finding your path.
There you go.
During your early 20s, or as Harrison said in his YouTube videos, which you should be checking out, a quarter life crisis.
Well, this is actually that's a good thing to bring up, not my video, but the topic. Had you heard of this term before?
I didn't hear about the term, but my God, do I live it every day.
Yeah, and it's not like I had so many responses to that video. And basically, everybody, if you haven't, you should watch the video because I explain it all. It's on my YouTube channel.
You should.
But it's everybody knows what a midlife crisis is. A quarter life crisis is essentially the same thing, just quarter way through your life, anywhere between 20, like kind of early 20s to early 30s, that kind of 10 years. It's basically like just unsure about what's to come in your life and if you're doing the right things and where is what direction you want to take it and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people relate to it, but not very many people talk about it, which I found really interesting. Like I had so many people message me or respond and comment on that video, and they were just like, yeah, like 100% this is what I'm feeling. So I think we should talk about it a little more in depth. That's a good place to start. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, completely agree.
But do you have any thoughts? I made a video on it, so I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's something like I know for a fact if you're listening to this podcast, you're going through it too. I already know. I think that is probably one of the definitive parts of being in your 20s is not knowing what you're doing with your life, and perhaps even early 30s to some degree. And I think you're right, it's such a common thing that literally everyone that I know who is my age feels, but no one talks about because everyone likes acting like they have it all together.
First of all, nobody at any age has it all together, but that's so hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, hey, the 80-year-olds look like they have their they look like they have their life together.
But have you ever talked to like an older person and then they're off just like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't understand that. I can be honest with
you. I haven't had too many conversations with old people, which fair. I should. I should. Sorry, I kind of haven't just yet. Yeah, no, that's all good. Yeah, but I think, it's something that no one really talks about, especially at this age. But I heard actually this last week, there was this song that I listened to and it kind of just like solidified and like confirmed and just like resonated with me so deeply. Specifically, it was a cover, actually. It was Yebba's cover of The Age of Worry by John Mayer. And the writing is great. I would want to look into it a little bit more. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but it sounds like, like John Mayer wrote a song for his younger self, and when he was like still figuring everything out and, doing all these things. And it just resonated really deeply with me. And there's this one line that was in the song that just really, really spoke to me. And I've been thinking about it all week ever since I heard it. At first, I thought it was something else, because the line is like, rage in the age of worry, at your age in the age of worry. And I thought it was like something else, like something about rage. But then I read the lyrics and it's actually act your age in the age of worry. Yeah. And that just like hit me so deeply and it made me think about, like, oftentimes I've heard like, I don't act like my age. I act like I'm like 10 years older, like that kind of thing, 5-10 years older. And it kind of made me think about the fact that Harrison, well, for the viewers and who are listening right now, Harrison and I are both 21. Harrison's birthday is actually next week. Ooh. But we're both 21 at the time of this recording. And the both of us, or I'll speak for myself, like, like I have like ambitions and plans and goals and dreams and aspirations, and at the same time making making space for just allowing yourself to be 21, and do things that normal 21-year-olds do, like hang out with your friends, go on a road trip, do, like make bad decisions, like having a space for that is something that I think I don't do enough of. And sometimes it leads to burnout and a feeling of like unnecessary pressure. But yeah, that's kind of
do you think you feel pressured to not act your age?
I think it's not any, like, I understand, like, it's not any external pressure for me. It's always it's internal. It's internal
Right.
pressure. Yeah, I pressure myself, because I like, on the flip side, it's like, yes, I want to achieve things and help people, but then on the flip side, there's also the pressure of like, okay, come on, we got to be consistent. We can't just slack off. We got to do something different, right? If you want extraordinary results, you got to put in extraordinary amounts of work and extraordinary amounts of planning, and you got to be different, essentially.
I think some of that.
What about for you? Like, do you see that kind of playing out for yourself, like with the entire age thing and ambition?
Right.
Here's the question: how do you see age interacting and balancing with your ambition?
You word things so nicely. It takes me a second to like understand what you're saying. I love it. Before I do that, I want to just say I think say I feel the same way you do. First of all, so I have very similar thoughts and comments on this. But you say it's internal pressure, but I think I would argue that that started somewhere else, right? Because especially in this age of the internet, and whether you want to blame it on that or not, I think that it can be easy. We see people and it's like by 20, so many people, say so many, I don't know how many, but it appears that a lot of people, they have like millions of dollars and they're able to travel around the world and, whatever, I'm talking like social media Instagram people specifically, but like even like TikTok and the rise of TikTok and all that stuff. It's like it's created this unattainable or unrealistic standard of like what you should be able to achieve. And I was actually talking to my parents about this a little while ago, and it's interesting that like there's so many, you hear the stories of so many successful people and they just did not like failed so many times, right? Like J.K. Rowling, however many times she tried to submit her book and nobody wanted it, thought it was crap, and like Colonel Sanders in KFC, he was like however old he was, right? He was like almost in the 70s, I think, before that became a thing. And even like Thomas Edison, right? Like the light bulb was not his first big thing. He was trying he failed so many times. That is natural success. That's how it happens, right? And we know that. But it's skewed because in this day and age, you can literally become quote unquote successful in a matter of hours. You know what I mean? Like under 24 hours, you could like blow up on the internet or something. Now all of a sudden you have a bunch of let's take you for example. You just it's not happened to the same degree, but you had one of your videos blow up, and not exactly for the sole reason. Your channel is not focused specifically on that type of video, right? You do all kinds of different things, but it blew up and now it's great. You got a bunch of new people, but it can easily shift your perception of what success is, because it can be like, and I know we've talked about this, so you're going to continue to kind of ignore it almost because it's an outlier. But I think that for me to bring this all back, I feel this feeling of I give myself pressure because I feel like I'm behind, and I know I'm capable of good things, and I think we should all believe in ourselves like that. But I feel like I'm behind because I'm seeing others that are just like, doing great things, quote unquote great things, or just maybe living a life that I want to, and often it's fake, but it's hard to see. And I think that specifically social media, I talk about social media in a bad way all the time. It's good things about social media, blah, blah, blah. But I think that is what creates that feeling of, at least it emphasizes that feeling of that kind of midlife or quarter life crisis thing, because you're seeing false portrayals of what is actually possible at this age. It's just those couple outliers like Charlie D'Amelio, you know what I mean? And just people like that, and you're just like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. It's like, yes, but like not everyone was Justin Bieber, you know what I mean? Where like he became but we all think that we can be that. And I think that's the problem. How's that for a rant, Ameer?
I completely agree. Now that you bring it up, like I'm thinking through it more, and I'm like, yeah, social media and kind of, I think the root of that feeling of pressure is comparison.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about comparison, and I've talked about this at length with my friends, my therapist, in my own videos as well. Comparison is a very interesting evolutionary feature of the human brain.
Okay.
Back when we were living in small tribes and everything, and it was just a hundred or so people in a small group, you needed to actually compare yourself to the other people in your tribe to see where you stood, because social status was how you survived back then, right? It's how you reproduced. It's all these things, right? If you didn't stack up and like conform to the tribe, then you would be kicked out and you would die, right? So naturally, like the people who survived are the ones that were able to like essentially observe the other people around them, compare their own behavior, and then act accordingly to ensure everyone's survival. Right. So it's a very interesting like evolutionary trait that helped us. But now in the 21st century, living, we have, I've heard the brain and like all of its different like bugs and functions described this way. It's like we're functioning in the 21st century with a brain that was from like prehistory.
Yeah, well, it's true.
And it's interesting all the ramifications of that. I think specifically as it pertains to social media, you're right. We get we get a BS view of what success is supposed to look like at this age. And I think bring it back to the evolutionary thing. So it was useful when we were comparing ourselves to only the few hundred people who existed in our group. And that's all that we needed to compare ourselves to. But now with the internet, the fact that we have literally the entire world at our fingertips, that group of 100 has expanded to 7, 8 billion, right? All the people that you see on the internet and you come into contact with, that becomes your basis for comparison. And that just ends up becoming a race that you can never win or never finish, because the marker keeps on getting moved. It's like, okay, I can do this. Oh wait, there's someone who's more successful. It's an endless cycle of comparison. And I think that is like definitely one of the things that creates that pressure, especially for us at this at this young age. It's like, oh, hey, this person who's graduating school is making 6 figures. Right. Or, wow, this person like blew up and is like like driving a Ferrari. And of course, like it's not about the materialistic things. Like you and I both can agree, but sometimes it shows up in more subtle things. Perhaps it's like, wow, this person is living their dream lifestyle, or whoa, this person has a really nice meditation practice, or whoa, this person is making a bigger impact and has more followers than me. Like that manifests itself also in more subtle ways. And I think doing the inner work of trying to like manage and deal with that comparison is super important. To bring it back, super important if we want to balance our ambition with the reality of our age.
Yeah. And it's not easy because we're around it all the time. And even if you try to avoid it, it's just there. It's in the pop culture, the things we talk about. Like it's specifically, at our age, it's all my only frame of reference, because that's the only age I've been. But it's you can't really avoid it, right? Even advertising, like anywhere you go see a movie, the things that are in the movie are building on these societal stereotypes and blah blah blah. And I mean that might be part of it. Like I think our generation, whatever, what are we, Gen Z?
I think so.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds super Canadian.
Gen Z.
We we're kind of like, and I think it's a great thing, but as the generations are, the younger ones from like, I don't know, I'm comparing to like our parents and like the baby boomers, right? Like our grandparents' parents. There's been a big change in a lot of things, in the way just the global kind of consciousness and the way we think, which is, again, like lots of good stuff. But there's this stereotype, because still a large majority of the people kind of in charge of our society and lives are not our generation yet. There's these also extra pressures that are like, you have to do things the way we do, and the way that you guys are starting to do things is wrong, because it's hard to accept stuff. There's part of that pressure that I feel too. It's not really related to what we were talking about, but I don't know if you feel that. I mean, I don't get it really directly. The people around me are loving, and I'm very grateful for that. But just in general, I kind of get this feeling personally of like the different generations not fully understanding maybe where we're at, why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, what I want to do. And because the people that are supposed to kind of guide you because they're older, maybe they are supportive, but they can't fully understand it. There's a disconnect there, and I find that challenging. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like that feeling of like essentially being being judged by the previous generation's metrics.
Yeah, that's it.
But they're not applicable to you. And the interesting thing about that is that I also see that, like, I won't lie, I'll be completely honest. Like, I can see that very subtly manifesting itself in myself as well. When I look at like 14
Oh,
year
yeah, you got
olds,
to catch
13,
it.
14 year
Yep.
olds, it's like, now I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, your music needs, and then I feel myself becoming a boomer, and I'm like, oh my god, like, oh, I'm getting too old already. I'm starting to think like that, but I try to be tolerant, and like understanding and open-minded like that. I think it's interesting because, like, obviously, like, they live in a completely different world, and so values have shifted. And now, like, we are more like, in our generation, we're more concerned about, like, fitting in and like doing something that's our purpose, and doing something that like serves people, and all these different kinds of things. When back then, like, keep in mind, like, during like World War I and World War II, people were just trying to survive.
Right.
you know I think there's a generational disconnect, and I can see, like, in full honesty, we have the privilege to be here having this
Oh, yeah.
conversation about like life and
Of
exploring
course.
what it means, when perhaps people who came before us didn't have that. And so my question to you is, like, how do you think we can, like, recognize, like, the fact that we are very privileged to have these conversations and like work through and like live our lives in this way, while also, like, I guess, staying, like, balancing that, but then also at the same time still staying practical, because there's obviously like very valuable things that we learn from them, like my mom, who immigrated here from the Philippines. It's like, she doesn't, like, she's super loving and super supportive. I love my mom to bits, right? And so she's always supporting me in what I do, but she doesn't understand, like, wait, you're gonna go make money on the internet, but what about your benefits? What
Right.
about your job? What about like all these tangible practical things? So how do you personally see yourself navigating, like, the privilege of being able to talk about a purpose, but then also at the same time staying, like, practical and grounded, or wherever you want to take
I
that?
think you just need to be is awareness. We talked about that last time a little bit. I think
Mhm.
it's awareness. Like, you need to you just acknowledged it, and I think about that sometimes, and it's when you come from I don't know how deep you wanna go on this privilege thing. We don't need to maybe go that crazy, but, um, even between me and you, there's a privilege difference. You know what I mean? Um, and and acknowledging that is obviously the most important thing, and being aware of it. Um, and I think that comes down to any sort of privilege. And I'm no expert on this, and I don't want to come across like that because I'm learning a lot. And I think that needs to be key. Try to put yourself in other people's shoes and fully understand a situation. And this goes for like anything in life. I think like even arguments and stuff. It's like you cannot fully forgive someone or have them forgive you unless you full like try to really put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're feeling. And that can be applied to this. Um, and yeah, and again, I'm not like textbook of how to deal with this, but that's how I've been thinking about it, at least in other ways. And I think it applies to this too. Where you just need to be like in the sense of your mom, what you're saying there, like or what I was saying about my just when you talk to other people in different generations, try to instead of going, well, you just don't get it. You don't get it. And it's like, well, this is why they're saying that. I understand that they don't get it because when, my grandparents, when whatever, however they got married like 18, 19, you know, times were very different than when I was in 18 and
Mhm.
19. And it was like, you get a stable job because like you need to focus on getting a job first, you know what I mean? And like everybody was kind of like, married, job, family, like that was like priorities in society as a whole. And right now that's not it. There's going to be a whole lot of people our age that don't have kids, man, because they have different views, and things have changed. So I think it's, to come back to it, it's the awareness. It's got to, and trying to really understand somebody else's perspective, and then understand yours, and see the difference. Why is there this kind of disconnect? Which I'm realizing as we're talking, I got to do more of this. Which is why we have the conversations, and understanding that, like, that, why that disconnect happens, and then still choosing to do your thing because you're in a different place. You don't have to be governed by what somebody else has done or think you should do, but that understanding of kind of where you've come from, where other people have come from, again, in any situation, is going to help you gain that perspective, and then make it so you feel grounded. You're not just blindly doing what you're doing because you think you need to be, and you don't understand why everybody else feels the way they do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Completely.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, actually, earlier as you were talking, you brought up a really good point about priorities that I kind of want to lean into a little bit. Like, you're totally right. Back then they got married at 18 or 19 and got a stable job and everything because they had different priorities. Yeah. Right. And understanding, of course, generationally speaking, we have different priorities right now. This was actually something I was reflecting on this week. Basically, like, so for the viewers out there, this last week has been like really stressful, and like I've been like working like 12-14 hour days, and like my sleep has kind of been suffering. But today I slept in and I meditated, so I'm in a really good headspace. But it was like a really, really like packed week, and I was like really tired and exhausted, and I just sat down and like reassessed, am I actually living out my priorities? Do I have my priorities straight? And I kind of sat down and I looked at my week, and I'm like, I'm compromising on my priorities, on the things that are important to me. I'm like kind of acquiescing to other people's requests for me, and like saying yes to too many things, and sacrificing my own well-being. And that's my number one priority. I'm curious for you, like, what are your, priorities, and how do you, I guess, like, live in a way that kind of keeps them at the forefront? How do you live in alignment with that? What are your priorities?
Priorities in what?
Life.
Just life in general.
Yeah,
a lot of it comes back to what we talked about last time about what's a good life look like to me, and that kind of stuff, I think. But yeah, actually, a lot of it comes back to that. Like, I just want to feel good and be happy personally, and then I want to make a positive impact on the world. So what I choose to do in my day-to-day life supports that, and it's all kind of one big thing. Not all the time, but I try to make it. Staying grounded and coming from a place of kind of like peace is a priority at the moment for me, because I say naturally, I don't know where it came from, but because obviously everything comes from somewhere, but I have a very bad temper and I get mad very quickly. Yeah, Ameer goes, yeah, me too.
Yeah, twinning.
And that it's a very specific thing, but it's been something I've been working on a lot, and I've noticed that I'm making progress, because I'll go to get mad about something and I will stop myself and go, what are you doing? This is not who you want to be. Let's change it in a way that I've learned, and I say that because I'm saying, coming from a place of a peace and calm and that kind of thing, like, that's where I want to be. I want to be freaking hindsight, man. I want to be that all the time. And nah, I can't be as cool as him. Let's be real. But coming from that kind of place, because then I think all other things come to fall into place for me. Like, if I come from that place and reduce, it reduces stress, and I feel better, I feel happier, and I can be more present with conversations like this and that kind of thing. That's it. That's my priority. What are yours right now? Is it the same kind of thing? Is it related to last week, or?
Well, I have a definitive list.
He has a list. Oh my gosh, he has a list.
Me with my list, well then, priorities, charts,
you want to share some of the list, or what?
Oh, sorry, my ENFJ Virgo ass is showing. Okay, well, my number one priority, like on paper, and this is saying like what my priorities are on paper, but sometimes like in a given week, in all honesty, it can be very different than what I actually do, and I need to get better at that, because like what I find is like when I'm acting in alignment with my priorities, wow, I feel great.
Yeah.
Like I'm generally very happy, with everything. But then when I'm not acting in line with my priorities, I feel like I'm compromising. I wonder why. Maybe I am. But yeah. Anyways, so I mean, all the things. It's very simple fixes. But my priorities at the moment, number one priority is my well-being, and that's kind of a catch-all term for my health, my mental well-being, inner peace. Just like being present, well-being in general. That's my number one thing. I don't want to like sacrifice my well-being for like huge stacks of money or like a million followers. Like I'm not sacrificing my well-being for that because I value myself, and I think that was a recurring theme this week, like not being afraid to value yourself and to value your time and to like take time off for yourself. Right, not being afraid about that.
I know.
Right, not being afraid to communicate your worth. Like I was thinking about that, like a tangent before I get back into priorities. I was thinking about that a lot this week. Like, am I properly communicating my value and my worth? Or am I being ashamed? Or am I feeling ashamed to say it, to communicate it? I think oftentimes like it's kind of like taboo to say, you know what, my time is valuable. Because it's like, are you stuck up? It's like that kind of thing. It's like, are you saying no to me? Like oftentimes like people want us to say yes to everything and to be there, but like the truth is you can't be there, right? You have different priorities. You need to take care of yourself. And I think this week, like, taking care of myself and not feeling ashamed about it, I think is something that I want to like work more on, but it's also something I think I've been like focusing on and doing a better job of this week.
Yeah.
So that's that tangent.
Yeah, no, you touched on a lot of, I won't go into it, but it's interesting you say that because I literally last night, I had a huge day, like 2 big sessions in the studio. I came back and I made dinner and I watched TV. Okay. And I didn't do any work. And I felt like I had like failed myself. And I literally, I don't know if you ever do this, but I looked at myself in the mirror and I talked to me on the other side as though I'm a real person that I was talking to.
We're such
I know,
twins.
It's crazy. And I was like, I'm sure he does it too.
Yeah,
and I looked at myself and I talked to myself, I'm like, you need to rest. Like you deserve to rest. It's important. And so, we're living the same life, my man.
Me in the mirror. It's the Spider-Man meme. You need to rest.
Anyway, continue. Post tangent.
Oh, that is hilarious. Yes, viewers, Harrison is like my brother from another mother. Like, like we were separated at birth.
So
type beat. Oh, I'm so glad to have met you. But yeah, priorities and everything. So number one priority is my well-being, and I will talk to myself in the mirror and say, you need to rest and prioritize yourself. Second most important priority is my girlfriend, is my partner, Annie, of course. And that like, actually no. Second priority are like my close relationships, my close family relationships. So like my mom, my girlfriend Annie, or like even you as well, and like the people who are like super close, my closest circle. That's my priority, relationships. After that, third priority is YouTube. The YouTube channel, because like that's like where I like so clearly feel aligned kind of with my purpose and what it is that I'm here to do. Like it, in many ways, like it feels like my ikigai, if you're familiar with the concept of ikigai, right? It's like what you're paid to do, what you love to do, what you're good at, and what serves the world. It's kind of like the intersection of all those things. And so that's why I feel so strongly about it. And that's why it's such a priority. Third priority is YouTube. Fourth priority is teaching. And this gets more into like nitty gritty work stuff. So fourth priority is teaching, as we talked about. Like on top of my bed is like a little sheet of paper that says teacher, just to remind myself of like my, at least like the identity that I try to live in every day. So teaching is especially important after that. And then like at 5 to 8 gets a little bit more nitty gritty with like business stuff and like work stuff that is more on the private side. But like that's kind of like the big picture view of what I prioritize. And that's on paper. In practice this week, I actually didn't prioritize my well-being or my relationships or YouTube very much. Like I've been saying yes to a whole lot of like different work projects and everything like that, and kind of like letting my own priorities slide. And so like today I today actually I decided to say, enough is enough. I'm gonna take time for myself. So I slept in, caught up in my sleep, because the last few days I've been getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and like crashing midway through the day, taking a quick nap for like 25 minutes, and then waking back up and then continuing. So today I decided to say, nope, I'm getting sleep. Nope, I'm gonna go meditate for like 30 minutes, take time for myself. Nope, I'm gonna go have a great conversation with one of my best friends. Like that's, and I'm gonna focus on YouTube today. And I got an extension on work projects just so I could like breathe and like be with myself. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing today to realign myself with that.
I wanna question you on your big three, the kind of big life things. You say well-being. I agree with that. I was saying what I was saying I would put into that category. That's kind of my number one, just overall. It's a bunch of stuff. But you said YouTube, which is very specific, and I would broaden it from an upside perspective to purpose, because that may change, right? Probably not for a while, but it may even day to day it might shift a little bit. But would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I think it's kind of like the third spot in general, like, because I've been thinking about like this has kind of been on my list of priorities for like the last 3-4 years. The third spot is always like interchangeable, like with whatever is like my main kind of focus, or like the main vehicle of purpose for me at that moment. So perhaps like 2 years ago that would have been, I don't know what it was for me too. Well, music, like creating songs and that kind of thing. Like that's kind of what took the third spot. But you're absolutely right. Like keeping it broad, and I think maybe extending it to contribution, and service, right, and creating. Like I think like all those things, it's like it's hard to lump up into one word. So I just kind of say, hey, right now I'm doing YouTube. Right? I think it kind of encapsulates all of that. But like this in and of itself, like like it's not exactly YouTube, but like this is like also like a number 3 spot activity, as I call it, right? Like purpose, being able to share and have conversations, and like, hopefully if you're listening to this, help people. Hopefully you're deriving some value from this.
Yeah. Do you think?
But that's what it looks like.
You have to be putting time and effort and energy into like 1 and 2 before you can really be present in 3. Yeah. What happens if, for example, today, I'm just curious, this is a number 3 activity. We're going to number them. And you're not, well, as you haven't been the past week, you said, you just shared, you haven't been prioritizing your well-being, which is number 1. And this comes up, which is third on the list. How do you deal with that situation? Like if today you were really feeling, or you hadn't prioritized, you hadn't slept in, you were feeling like crap. You know what I mean? But you had to do this other thing. What would you do?
Well, in that hypothetical scenario, I would just be like, yo, can we do next week? I need to like take time to like either take a nap or go for a walk or like watch a sunset. I think that goes back to the other thing of not being afraid to like do what's best for us, right? Not being afraid to communicate, our own value and like prioritize ourselves, like this also goes for you as well. Like if you like need to prioritize your well-being, like on a day that we're recording, like you can always, tell me. But like ideally, like I'm saying this right now and I know myself, like ideally I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, communicate your value. Yeah, that's right, Ameer, I am worthy. Like all that kind of stuff. But I also know that in practice, like when we get practical about it, like if that were to happen, I'd be like, yeah, push through, Ameer. Come on, you got it.
Right.
And I think it's something that I'm learning to balance every single day, that I'm not the best at, but I'm trying out here, and that's what it's all about. Bring it back to the age thing, like just coming full circle as well, like for yourself and like priorities and like work and purpose and everything. I'll share my reflection. I'll get your thoughts on this. It's like I find that sometimes, as you said, we can get like really myopic about like working on our purpose and like doing all these things and like being super gung-ho and like essentially taking things too seriously. Which I'm like super guilty of. I take things way too seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, we take things too seriously. Exactly. Oh my god, yeah. So like I think I've been trying to like step away from that, not take things too seriously. Remember, I'm just 21. We're just 21. We're chilling. right? But then at the same time, there's this like deep-seated desire to like do more, like give more, like balancing the two of those is like a weird balancing act. What do you think about that? How do you deal with that? Do you feel that as well?
I don't know how to deal with it, to be honest with you. And I think that's part of being 21. That's what I'm realizing, which is what we're talking about in this conversation. You and I both feel, and not just you and I, a lot of people, and a large majority of the people who listen to this podcast are similar in age to us. And that's part of it. And I think it comes from all those pressures that we were talking about earlier, social media and everything, that when, like you were just saying, I'm not good at this, and or whatever it is. If there's something and you're like a life thing that you feel like you're not good at, we don't have to be good at it because that takes time to develop. And I'm saying this because it's easy to say and it's hard to practice, but we have time. You and I both know we have time. That doesn't change the fact that we feel the way we feel. And we feel like we should be, we can develop ourselves to this morally perfect, philosophical, just like, perfection, like just amazing person by 21. No. The average, the majority of the population don't achieve that in 100 years. So why would we think we could do it in 20 years? That's something I need to remember. And that I forget a lot of the time also. And that's it. It's what we're talking about, just, being your age, and part of being acting, quote unquote, acting your age. And specifically in this situation. So let's say being a 21-year-old is having no idea how life works, because everybody that's gone through being 21 at some point was like, what? How do I do this? How do I live life? How do I blah, 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 blah? And that's part of life, which is not talked about enough. All of this, but that specifically where it's like everybody's felt that. But I think when we're talking about change in generation, like the shift generational thing, part of our generation, which is a great thing, and I'm so happy about, is that we communicate things more because things are less like taboo, and we can we have the internet and people don't kind of care less, which is a cool thing sometimes, where you just get to hear everything. Can be terrible. But, let's go back again, like I was saying with my grandparents, in that time, people aren't going to talk about this stuff we're talking about, like publicly. And if they were, they would be, a significant outlier. Like it's not the average thing to do. And I've lost my train of thought as I'm talking about this, but I had a point. I don't know what it was, but there's a different thing. I'm not even try to finish it. I totally lost what I was trying to say, but you understand where I was going with this, do you? Yeah. You want to finish my thought?
I resonate. No, I resonate. I got you. He's the singular brain cell that exists.
You ever do that though? Like you're just, I'm so into it, and then I just lost it.
All the time.
Gone.
All the time, dude. All the time. All the time. I resonate so deeply with what you just said. Part of acting your age, what it means to act your age in the age of worry, is to be bad. Like to give yourself permission to not know. Yeah. Right. I think like giving yourself the permission and the space to not have it all figured out, to like, oh, I made a wrong decision, like the permission to be imperfect. I think what it means to me to act your age, now that I, like, I feel like I've kind of throughout the course of this conversation, it's like, well, we're coming to realizations. And it's like, like, I think that's the main thing that I've kind of realized. And I'll share this, I'll repeat it just so that it's, just so it's said twice. Acting your age and giving yourself the permission to act your age is giving yourself the permission to be imperfect and not have it all figured out. Like you are absolutely right. Like, by the age of, 21, I want myself to be like a friggin' like philosophical, like genius, like communicator, like articulate the thoughts and mysteries of life. But I haven't lived enough life to do that. And like I lose my trains of thoughts and I like stumble on my sentences and I can't think coherently sometimes and I make wrong decisions and I forget my priorities and things get misaligned. And that is what it means to act your age. And fundamentally, that's what it means to be yourself. I don't think it's necessarily about an acting your age kind of thing, but I think it's fundamentally about being yourself, being authentic to who you are.
And just think about, I know, man. You're so poetic in the way you speak. I just want to say, I think I said it last time, but I just like, it's amazing. So I'm glad I have you on here. So it's not just me ranting. And it sounds a little like nice artistic moment in the middle of it. Live poetry with Ameer. And I think you said an interesting thing there. Man, like my brain, I just like overwhelmed by the amount of, this is good stuff. We're talking about good stuff here. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to kind of change the topic a little bit, but it's good to be bad. And I think when you're talking about priorities, we need to prioritize failing at a young age. I don't even like myself for saying that. That makes me uncomfortable. And I like, I don't fully understand what that means, but I think in theory, that is something we should prioritize, because that's how all the learning happens. We know that, you know what I mean? And we don't prioritize failing. And anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on that. But aside from that, something you were just saying is, you know, oh, we want to be this, we were saying to be this big, you know, amazing, perfect person by 20. But just think about, we're talking about you and I because we're having this conversation, but anybody, think of, if you have these big aspirations to be that person at this age and you're not, think about who you'll be when you're double your age, if this is your priority at the moment. You know what I mean? The fact that you and I are doing this, that I set up the podcast, and we are the age that we are, if you take a step back and go, if we continue this, where are we going to be later? And I think that's part of it. It's hard to step back and see the journey. You know what I mean? Like what is going to happen, because we are going back to this social media thing. We're able to, like, things can happen instantly, right? They can, not all the time, but we think that everything should happen instantly. And a lot of life, the majority of life, is slow, right? So, perspective of just sometimes taking a step back and going, you know, I'm just on this journey. I'm learning stuff. Think of where I'm going to be if I continue in this way, and worry a little less. And my mantra for the year is think less, do more. So you're talking about making mistakes and being not crazy, but like you know, maybe a slightly reckless 21-year-old. Think a little less and do a little more within good reason.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, don't make any like permanent mistakes.
But I want to hear your thoughts on prioritizing failing.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. And I'll respond to like what you said earlier about like, you know, about like, hey, we're already doing this now. It's like, imagine where that would be, you know, in like, you know, double your age. I think that brings me back to, well, I mean, I'll grab this just 1 second.
You got props?
Grab a book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got a book right here. So this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, if you're just listening and you can't see this, Atomic Habits by James Clear, highly, highly recommend this book. Basically, what you said reminds me of this one quote in the book. What matters less is your destination or where you currently are. What matters most is your trajectory. You know, I'm bastardizing the quote right now, but what matters most is your trajectory, your current habits, what you're doing now, right? It doesn't matter whether, like the example he used was for money. It's like, it doesn't necessarily matter if you are a millionaire right now. What matters is your habits, because that sets the trajectory and that sets the direction in which you're moving. It's like, if you're a millionaire with like bad financial habits, then ultimately that's just going to lead you to ruin. However, if you are like, let's say like you only just have like $100 in your bank account, but you're saving, you're budgeting every penny, right? Those habits compound themselves over time, and that leads to you becoming, you know, that person that you envision yourself to be, even though that's not the goal. The goal is really just to be that person now, and to live that process, and to live those habits, those systems, and to basically it's prioritizing the direction over the destination. You know, what matters most is your direction. So that's what that reminded me of. As for priorities and and prioritizing failing, that reminds me of this one video that I was editing for work for Gary Vaynerchuk. Basically, one of his videos, the title of the video was like "Failing is a part of the process," and he gave this one analogy that really like stood out to me, and maybe it'll resonate with you. And this is basically what he said. I've listened to the video like so many times because I've been editing it like 7 revisions in. But basically, what he said was, imagine, okay, if we tell somebody to like go to the gym and just shoot 397 free throws, all of us listening, all of us intrinsically are like, okay, yeah, that's going to help that person become a better basketball player. Like go put in the hours and practice. I think what we don't talk about often enough is that out of those 397 shots, they're going to miss like 300 something of them, right? They're going to miss majority of those shots. And I think acknowledging that, wait, the failing, the missed shots are actually part of the process. The missed shots are actually part of the learning. I think that, like, bringing it back to the age thing as well, like prioritizing taking shots and missing. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not talking about drinking. I'm talking about like, going for things, I mean, hey, if you want to go take shots, go live your life, do whatever, this podcast is your daily shot of wisdom. From two kids who are trying to figure it out as well. But, I think prioritizing going for things and not being afraid to miss, because when you miss, you learn, right? I think that's why it's especially important, and it goes back to the advice of like, just don't be afraid to try things at the stage. Like try like video editing, try, traveling, try being a soccer player, try making music. I think all of it is part of the process. And the last thing that I'll kind of like bring up, and I'll get your thoughts on this. The last thing that kind of makes me think about is like, okay, prioritizing failing. Like on paper or in a conversation, it's great to say, yeah, you know what, go for the missed shots. Don't be afraid to, miss, right? But in practice, oftentimes, I'll speak for myself, it's easy to feel like, oh, I don't want to waste my time. It's like, I'd rather just get the answer right. I like, let me think about, let me, figure out what's the right thing to do. I don't want to have to go through the pain of a failure. I don't want to have to make many mistakes. Am I just wasting my time? But kind of the one thing that James Clear said in Atomic Habits was that all the work that you put in prior to like let's say, you missed 100 shots, but then on the 101st, it was like it was a jackpot, something like it was the perfect thing, right? Does that mean all the 100 shots that you took before then were useless? No. What it is that the work was being stored. All the 100 shots that you took, the work was being stored, and then it exploded into effect on the 101st. Right? So all the reps that you put in aren't useless. They're not waste of time. They're work just being stored. I wish I could articulate the quotes better. I'm gonna have to reread it. But like that's kind of like what, prioritizing failing looks like to me, like just going for it and like not being afraid because the work is just being stored.
I think that's
yeah.
No, that's really good, man. That's a good. I have that book's on my list to read, and I want to. I should.
It's a good one.
I think, I agree with you. Like in practice, it's obviously different so it's easy with a lot of things that we talk about on here. It's always different, but it's nice to think about them. I think it starts with believing in yourself, because you need to believe that you can just do whatever it is you want to do. Because if you don't, a lot of people, I think the problem with this, or the challenge with this often, is that people are scared to fail because of what others are going to say, or how it'll make them look, or maybe how they'll feel if they fail. So it's maybe going into things with like, it's reconstructing your relationship with failure, I think, is part of it. You know what I mean? Like making sure that you're okay with it, which is not easy. I try to be okay with it, but doesn't mean I always am, and but believing in yourself enough to just try something. Like we had something happen recently, and somebody I know, it was a thing in class, and a bunch of people, they were asking for a suggestion, basically somebody to put forward something to work on, and nobody said anything. And this person was kind of forced to, and they did it, and they were hesitant to, and they probably wouldn't have if somebody else had said something, and they did it, and it was like incredible. It happened yesterday. It was like amazing. And if they hadn't have done it, who knows? Like maybe that wouldn't have never happened. All those people in the same room making music together. You know what I mean? So, you need to just like believe in yourself enough, figure out a way to have enough confidence in yourself, or enough. I don't know what the word is, but just like to just go for something and not care about what's going to happen and see what's going to happen. And that's the exciting part. Again, not easy to do, but even if you can do it in one little way, even if it's something like, I don't know where you're at, but like if it's saying hi to somebody to start a conversation, or sending somebody a message, or an email, or whatever it is, like you won't know unless you try. People say it all the time, and it's because it's true, but it's that you got to believe in yourself enough to like, and know that you can catch yourself when and if that doesn't happen the right way and you do fail. You need to be okay with it and say, you know what, I'm okay with that. I know it could happen, but the benefit of this, even if I do fail, is better than not doing anything, right?
Yeah. I completely agree. And like going back to the point, I also say, for y'all listening, and also I'm saying this for myself, like speaking about building confidence and everything, also part of acting your age and being your age is giving yourself permission to not be confident.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself the permission to worry, as the age of worry, says, act your age in the age of worry, right? Giving yourself the permission to, what? Yeah, I'm worried. I don't have enough life experience under my belt to know how to navigate this yet. Right. But I think it's also at the same time having the willingness to step in despite that. It's the choice to act is always available whether or not you are confident. Right.
Yeah.
The choice to act is always there, whether or not you are confident or whether or not you are ready. So I hope this episode has inspired you listening, to go out and, be yourself, to be your age, to accept, the limitations that come along with being, whether you're a teenager, whether you're 20, whether you're 30, 40, 50, whatever your age is. I hope that this has inspired you and reminded you that it is okay to be imperfect and to accept like where you are at right now as a necessary part of the process.
Yeah, it's a crucial.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah. Today. I'm so happy just that people care enough to tune in. So thank you for being here. It's not only like it's a crucial and non-negotiable part of life, right? So embracing that, because it's not going anywhere, and figuring out how you personally want to deal with it. But there's obviously many different ways. But yeah, embracing failure is an interesting discussion. That, and like there's embracing failure, and then there's also a part of just like there's a little bit of not caring involved in that, where it's just like, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what's gonna happen. I don't, you know what I mean? And it's just like I'm just gonna do whatever this is. I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna try it. And these are like specific situations I'm thinking of, not like crazy dumb things, but but just any. That's the whole. It's the whole premise of Yes Theory, my favorite YouTube channel. That's literally their whole thing. Their thing is seek discomfort, but it's like just trying things, knowing that you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the exciting part. So think about it. Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Thank you, Ameer. This is a good combo. I like this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for listening, of course.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Ameer, where can the people find you if they want to check out your YouTube channel and all that stuff?
Well, you can find me everywhere at Ameer Corro, AmeerCorro. That's AmeerCorro. That's on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you get social media.
All the good stuff. Check them out on Twitter. My Instagram is Harrison King Official, and all the podcast stuff's at harrisonkingofficial.com. What else? My YouTube channel is I think the same thing now. Harrison King Official. YouTube.com/Harrison King Official. Check that out because that's amazing. The priority. You're of YouTube, baby. I'm gonna keep saying it. It's the priority. So, thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next week, and remember to keep loving life and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the show, make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Visit us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Talk About Life Pod. And for more information, head on over to harrisonkingofficial.com/podcast. Now it's time for you to get out there and have a deep, meaningful conversation in your own life.